Hi, I am Miss Lori, and I'm from the Museum of the Albemarle. We are excited to share one of our exhibits here at the museum titled Women Breaking Barriers in Northeastern North Carolina. In preparing for this exhibit, we went to the counties that the museum represents, 13, and we asked county leaders, county historians to submit the names of women who they felt have broken barriers. We had over 120 names submitted. We have made every effort to recognize every single lady, and we still have names that are being submitted today, and we hope to maybe eventually add them to the exhibit. However, today, we're going to look at the women from Currituck County that have made a difference in Northeastern North Carolina. We're going to begin with a PowerPoint to highlight these ladies. Give me just a second so we can share. And as you can see, we've already covered, we're talking about the women and how they broke barriers in Northeastern North Carolina. But we're going to talk about Miss Arlene Snow. She falls underneath the area of entertainment. The exhibit's broken down into 18 different areas, and Mrs. Snow falls underneath entertainment for her ability to use her voice for goose calling. She became the state of North Carolina goose calling champion for several years. She was the Mid-Atlantic Voice Champion 1995. She was able to place second in 2 world championships, and she had the opportunity to demonstrate her voice at the Smithsonian Institute in DC. And she also appeared on the CBS television show On the Road, hosted by Charles Currituck. And that was a very popular television show for some years because Charles Currituck would travel all around to recognize people for their talents, for their the difference that they have made. But Mrs. Snow, she used her voice to call for goose calling, and she did not use the calls such as some people use today. Now, are there people who today use their voice to call? Yes, there are still people using their voice. Well, now we're going to look at Mrs. Alma Owens Roberts, who we give a lot of recognition to in journalism. Mrs. Roberts, she was a freelance reporter who wrote for local newspapers such as the Ledger-Dispatch, Virginia Pilot, the Independent, the Daily Advance. And she was also instrumental in preserving the history of Currituck County, where she was a charter member of the Currituck Historical Society. She researched many Currituck families. And in fact, we have a really nice book here in the museum's library that highlights many of these families, which Mrs. Roberts is in the book. In 1960, Mrs. Roberts worked with others on photographing and writing descriptions and brief histories of historic homes in Currituck County. And, you know, that's a very important information, because a lot of times houses become so unlivable that we just tear them down. But sometimes it's nice to have that research, or if you want to restore an older home, if you have photographs of the way it once looked, or maybe what color it was painted, just different aspects, you could restore the home to the original state when it was built. And she also collected a lot of artifacts and documents that would help tell the history for future citizens of Currituck County looking to do some research, or even maybe create a book one day. Then we have Mrs. Bertha Gregory Poole. She was considered public service because she served many different organizations. She gave her time freely to the people and the organizations that she was working with for better improvements within our society. But Mrs. Perry, she was a cosmetologist and civic leader in Currituck County. She was a longtime secretary of the Currituck chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. She was president of the Elizabeth City Organization of Black Cosmeticians. She was president of the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society for the Elizabeth City District of the AME Zion Church. She was a member of the Currituck Planning Commission, which that they help plan out whether if development should occur, if we should hold off on development of the county, just kind of planning on how many people will be interacting within the county. She was also president of the Moyock Home Demonstration Club. Actually, she was the first African-American president of the North Carolina Extension Homemakers Association. So that was a big accomplishment for Mrs. Perry, serving all of these different organizations. And I'm sure it was not easy also being a cosmetologist also and giving all of her time to these outside organizations, especially if she had any family at home too. Now, as far as the Moyock Home Demonstration Club, these were women that came together and they were like looking for ways just to improve their lives, whether it was bringing extra income into the family or whether it was how can I improve making some curtains or what can I, different materials I can use that will last a while. How can I make canned vegetables for my family so that we don't waste all the vegetables that we have grown over the summer, but they work together to better themselves. So next we have Miss Susan Johnson. She serves as civil service, and she actually started work with the Currituck Sheriff's Department in 1989 in an administrative capacity. However, she worked her way up. She interacted with the people of Currituck County, and in 2000, she was elected by the people of Currituck County as the first female sheriff. And as everyone knows, being a sheriff in Currituck County is definitely probably not the easiest job out there, being that you're working two locations, even though it's all Currituck County. You still have your mainland Currituck County and your Outer Banks Currituck County, with not only the Outer Banks Currituck County, but it's a four-wheel section, and they have lots of visitors over during the summertime. So it's not always easy getting the services to the upper Currituck County on the Outer Banks. However, Mrs. Johnson, she retired in 2018, but she was the first female sheriff for Currituck County. We have Betsy Dowdy for courage. And Betsy Dowdy showed her courage in 1775. She was known as the Paul Revere of North Carolina. For at the age of 16, she did live on the Currituck Banks and near the Virginia border, and she learned that Governor John Murray, Earl of Dunmore, had captured Great Bridge, which many of us know that Great Bridge is located in Virginia. And he was going to head south to Northeastern North Carolina. However, someone had to notify General Skinner, who was 50 miles away in Perquimans County. So Betsy Dowdy, she mounted her horse Black Betts, and she rode all the way to Currituck County. She crossed the Currituck Sound, the Dismal Swamp, and she notified General Skinner that the British were coming. And they were able, General Skinner and his men, they marched up to Great Bridge, and they won that battle during the Revolutionary War. Next, we have Mrs. Margaret Rutherford Knapp, which she was the wife of a New York publisher, Joseph Palmer Knapp. Many of you should be very familiar with the Knapp name, because I believe you have the J.P. Knapp Early College, which at one time was J.P. Knapp High School. And they actually built a hunting lodge on Mackey Island in 1916, and they just enjoyed all the time that they were able to spend in Currituck County. During the Depression, the Naps, they would wrap Christmas presents for all the children on Knott's Island and deliver them by truck. Also, too, with the interest that Joseph Palmer Knapp had in the government, especially at the Institute of Government at UNC Chapel Hill, upon his death, Mrs. Knapp donated a large sum of money to the Institute of Government, and there is a building named after Mr. Knapp today. Mrs. Knapp also commissioned for 25 murals to be painted on key events here in North Carolina. And today, the Museum of the Albemarle has possession of 2 of those murals. One is of the Lord Proprietors having a celebration around the table, and the other mural is of a battle during the Civil War. But Mrs. Knapp actually donated the funds to have those murals painted. We have Mrs. Barbara Snowden. Many of you might know Mrs. Snowden because, believe me, she is a true historian. She taught history in Currituck County for many years. In fact, a co-worker of mine had Mrs. Snowden as a history teacher, and Mrs. Snowden was known for bringing history to life. If she was going to teach something, believe me, you were going to have that experience in the history class, whether she came dressed or showed presentations, but she was going to bring history to life. She was not just going to be the same old history lesson each day. She actually wanted to bring it to life for her students. Mrs. Snowden, she was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to the North Carolina Historical Commission. She was the organizer of the 350th anniversary of the formation of the precincts that became Northeastern North Carolina. And she actually promoted that promoted it so hard. We had activities here at the museum. Each county had activities just to recognize and bring that we were celebrating our 350th anniversary of Northeastern North Carolina. Mrs. Snowden has been a presenter here at the museum for her book that she co-authored, The Goodliest and Most Pleasing Territory. It's on architecture of Currituck County, many of the older historic homes. Mrs. Snowden has not only she does public service, but she serves the Museum of the Albemarle. She is a very, she believes very strong in preserving our history and telling our story and spreading the word that we are Northeastern North Carolina and we have a lot to tell you. We have a lot of history and let's just get the word out. But Mrs. Snowden is very instrumental here at the Museum of the Albemarle as she was in the Currituck public school system. But they actually called Mrs. Snowden an outstanding representative of Currituck County and a guardian of our local and state history through her public service and as a longtime teacher. So Mrs. Snowden has definitely contributed quite a bit. We're looking at Mrs. Elizabeth Sanderlin. Mrs. Sanderlin was born in Moyock and she actually lived to be 102 years old. She attended Lewisburg College, but she returned back home around 1947 and she became the owner of a restaurant. But after a little persuasion, she started work in 1951 as a home demonstration agent. And this was after the second time that she was asked would she like to fulfill this job. Mrs. Sanderlin grew up in 4-H, going to camp, and she really had a passion for extension. And finally, in 1951, she did join them, only after her mother said, you might not want to do this because of all the time. But Mrs. Sanderlin dedicated her time, her energy, as a home demonstration agent. She was actually the first native of Currituck County to hold the office, and she did so for 18 years. She was as a home demonstration agent through Currituck County. She became one of the co-founders or few founders for the Albemarle Craftsman's Fair that still occurs today at Knobs Creek Recreation Center here in Elizabeth City. And it's where crafters come together and they share their crafts, they sell their crafts. But many of the times, if you walk through the Craftsman's Fair, you can see them making their crafts while they're having their show go on, whether it's making doll dresses or stamping leather belts, making jewelry, or carving out items out of wood. The men and the women are demonstrating their skills in the craft that they have mastered. And they come together and they want to share their history because they're hoping that they can pass their craft on to generations to come. She was also instrumental in promoting roadside farmer markets. So if your family had a vegetable garden during the summer, you could sell the vegetables that you would not eat through the roadside market. It's just, you can sell a variety of items, but this was a way of bringing extra income into your family and helping out around the house. Now that ends our talk for the various women of Currituck County. And I'm going to end that. And we're going to go back and I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the exhibit. So like I said, some of the women are represented through the television that we have here in the exhibit. And some of them are actually highlighted throughout the wall. We begin with how you can explore the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. And then we go into women who have made a difference through activism. And actually, Mrs. Elizabeth Sanderlin, she fell underneath the area of activism. But one of the ladies we have in there, we have Mrs. Carol Lista Baum, and she was from the Outer Banks. She made jewelry. However, she worked hard to save Jockey's Ridge. And as part of the exhibit, we do have a piece of jewelry that Mrs. Baum made. And we actually have a necklace, a ring, and some earrings from her. Then we fall into religion. Which we did not highlight anyone from Currituck County with religion. And then we look at public service. And I believe that Mrs. Barbara Snowden would have fallen underneath public service. And also too, Mrs. Bertha Perry, she fell underneath public services for serving all the people and the organizations to give people better ways of life and to help give advice and preserve history. We did talk about Mrs. Alma Owens Roberts. And in our exhibit, we do have the typewriter that Mrs. Roberts would have used in doing some of her freelance reporting for some of the local newspapers here in the area. Then we'll go on. We cover ladies who have had a part in literature. And in fact, we actually have a grandmother right here, Mrs. Inglis Fletcher. She was a novel writer, and her granddaughter was Mrs. Carol Lister Baum, who made the jewelry that we talked about. We do have a picture. We talked about Mrs. Alma Owens Roberts for journalism, and we do have a picture of her in her a little bit earlier than what I showed you on the PowerPoint slide. But we do have we highlight Mrs. Alma Owens Roberts. We do highlight Mrs. Arlene Snow. I'm going to bring you right over here. And again, Mrs. Snow would use her voice to make calls to waterfowl. And in the photograph we have of her, she is preparing to use her voice to call. We do have a duck call in our exhibit that we have. It's made of wood and it was handmade, but however, Mrs. Snow did not use that. Many hunters would rather use a wooden call or a duck call to attract waterfowl, unlike Mrs. Snow, who would use her voice to attract. And these are just a few of the other items that we have in here. We do have the record player in here because if you've ever heard the song, The Local Motion, that was recorded by Little Eva, she was actually from Northeastern North Carolina. We do recognize women who have gone out and started businesses for themselves, entrepreneurs. And one of them is Mrs. Leah Virginia Hill Cadwell. And she was a seamstress, moved to Washington, D.C. And she was so popular for her abilities that she had a lot of members of President Dwight D. Eisenhower's administration to use her services for seamstress. We do recognize women who have had a role in medicine. For a lot of times, women would travel to the homes to take care of men, women, and children. And we also have women that would go and enlist in the military so that they could help the men and others who were in wars and fighting for our country to help take care of them. We do have a few artifacts on display that would represent the women of medicine. Of course, we have a stethoscope, we have a baby weight scales, just a book to kind of help you out and guide you in your medical career. And as I stated, this is our television that we have at the museum. So if we could not highlight some of the ladies in the exhibit, they are still highlighted through the television screen. So we made sure and made every effort to give every woman that was donated to us the opportunity to be recognized by everyone that visits the Museum of the Albemarle, whether virtually or in person. And of course, we do cover academics. We have a slate board that would have been used in 1863 to teach with. And we also have an arithmetic book that teachers could have taught students, and a school bell to call the students into class, to release them from school, release them for their break, and to bring them back into class. And these are just a few of the women for academics. Mrs. Georgia Harvey Morgan, she would travel every summer to Raleigh just so that she was a librarian, and she just wanted to improve her skills and how she could offer more to her clients. So she would travel just to learn so that she would know how to better serve her clientele. And then, of course, we do represent ladies in the military. This particular uniform comes to, it's from World War II. And I believe she was a nurse in the Army Corps. And it was worn by Captain Frances Brownlee Evans. And she was from Currituck County. But this is just one of the uniforms we have here at the museum. So we do invite you to visit the Museum of the Albemarle. We are open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we plan to be open every third Saturday beginning March the 20th from 10 to 4 p.m. So we look forward to your visit. Also today, your teachers have received, just so you can identify all the fields that we are covering here at the museum. We have a words to know for women of Northeastern North Carolina breaking barriers, and you will find all the areas that women have broken barriers in, and a definition of how we identify these women and place them in the areas. We also, your teachers will also have a Women of Currituck Breaking Barriers word scramble. So we're going to see if you can unscramble the names of the women that we talked about from Currituck County today. We have provided the area that they broke their barriers in, and we just hope that you can identify the names of the women, just so that you will know the women who come from Currituck County breaking barriers. Again, thank you for having me. Please visit us at the Museum of the Albemarle. We're located at 501 South Water Street, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.